All right, today we're diving into a massive topic, how American society was completely transformed during World War II. And what's so fascinating is that it's a story of incredible unity and, at the exact same time, really deep challenging division.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, right? Put yourself back in December 1941. Pearl Harbor has just been hit. The U.S. is suddenly in the middle of the biggest war in human history. The challenge is just staggering. How on earth do you take an entire nation of consumers and turn it into a single, focused, unstoppable war machine, practically overnight?
Well, the first thing that had to happen was this massive, top-down overhaul of, well, everything. The federal government had to step in and take control in ways it never had before, all to point every single resource the country had towards one goal: winning the war.
And this was a huge job. To pull it off, the government basically grabbed four giant levers. First, you've got the War Production Board, which literally told companies like Ford, hey, stop making cars, you're building bombers now. Then, to keep the economy from going haywire with all this new wartime spending, they slapped on price controls. Of course, you need soldiers, so a military draft was put in place to swell the ranks of the armed forces. And finally, a huge propaganda effort was launched to get every single American on board and fired up for the cause.
But, government policies are one thing. To really make this work, the war effort had to be felt in every single American home. It wasn't just a war for soldiers, it was a total war, and that meant it demanded total participation from everyone.
And this is where it gets really incredible, because the war became so personal for everybody. This wasn't some far-off event you just read about in the papers. Families got these ration books, which meant you had to carefully manage every bit of sugar or meat or gasoline. People were literally tearing up their lawns to plant victory gardens and grow their own food. Kids got in on it, dragging their wagons around to collect scrap metal, and millions of people bought war bonds, which is basically like giving a personal loan to the government to help pay for the whole thing.
And the result of all this? It was an absolutely astonishing show of national unity. From the factory to the farm, it felt like the entire country was pulling together for one single purpose. Just a completely unprecedented collective effort.
But, and this is a huge but, that's not the whole picture, not even close. Because under all that unity, there were two very, very different stories being told.
See, with millions of men overseas, the country was desperate for workers. This threw open doors for women, for marginalized groups, opportunities they'd never had before. The problem was, while the jobs were new, the old prejudices, they were still very much alive and well.
And this is where you see the central contradiction of the entire home front. On one hand, the government is pushing these ideals of freedom, unity, and equality for all. You've seen the posters. But on the other hand, for millions of Americans, the daily reality was just the complete opposite. It was segregation. It was discrimination. And in one of the darkest chapters of American history, it was forcing your own citizens into internment camps.
So what does that mean? It means that for so many people, the war wasn't just one fight. It was two. They were fighting fascism in Europe and the Pacific, while at the same time fighting for their own basic rights and dignity right here at home.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. Look at African Americans. They're serving in segregated units. They're the backbone of so much of the war industry, all while pushing this double V campaign. That's victory over fascism abroad and victory over racism at home. Or think about Japanese Americans. My gosh, their sons are some of the most decorated soldiers in the war, while their parents, their sisters, their brothers are locked away in internment camps. You've got the incredible Navajo code talkers. Their language was literally a secret weapon that helped win the war, and yet their communities face poverty and neglect. The Bracero program brought in Mexican immigrants to do backbreaking farm labor, often in really terrible conditions. The pattern is the same: huge contributions and huge injustices.
So the big takeaway here is that America came out of World War II a completely different country. All these pressures, these contradictions, they didn't just disappear when the war ended. They actually planted the seeds for the huge social battles that were just around the corner.
There's a quote from our source material that just nails this perfectly. Despite mistreatment, marginalized groups played important roles in the war effort while continuing to protest unfair treatment. And that's the key, isn't it? It's not just that they contributed. It's that they served and fought, and all the while demanded that America actually live up to the ideals it claimed to be fighting for. And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. How did this global fight for freedom abroad end up lighting the fuse for the struggle for equality right here at home? It's like the war created this impossible tension, a promise of freedom that it couldn't keep for everyone.
And that tension was bound to snap, setting the stage for everything that came next.